Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Totally Awesome Podcast, the podcast that is so bad, it might just make you tap out. I'm your host, JoshAgeddon, and today we're going to be talking about AEW WrestleDream, their most recent pay-per-view the other day. And before I start, I know that it was originally going to be a quick thoughts video with all the stupid edits that I throw in. Change of plans on that because a couple reasons. Quite simply, number one, I am tired. I am a very tired boy. And those quick thought videos take a lot of editing and a lot of time, and I just do not feel like it this time around. I'm going to be completely honest. I'm tired. I've been tired all week. And already a lot of my focus is going to Super Jam Session because Sean and Skylar send me audio of their quick thoughts on the NFL. And those videos take a lot of time, and I'm already doing that. So I just too many quick thoughts. The thoughts are too fast, ladies and gentlemen, for me to keep up with. So to save my sanity, I'm just doing a podcast review of WrestleDream. This isn't going to be very long. Ironically enough, this is just going to be my quick thoughts on WrestleDream because I do have some things to say, but I'm not going to take up too much time. I don't plan on sitting here for an hour, but I might because I do tend to ramble sometimes. But again, if you haven't been watching the NFL quick thoughts or the quick thoughts that I did for AEW All In, All Out, or WWE Payback, please go watch all of those and go subscribe to Super Jam Session. And if you're not subscribed to Super Jam Session, how dare you? You should be ashamed of yourself. But again, I do have thoughts on AEW WrestleDream. I did watch the show, and I have thoughts on basically everything that happened, including the debut of Edge, and by Edge, I mean Adam Copeland in AEW. I have thoughts on that. And again, this is going to be more of a podcast review, kind of like with the TAW pay-per-view reviews that I usually do with Sean and Skylar and sometimes Jeffrey. Except this time, it's just going to be me. It's not going to have Sean or Skylar, mostly because they did not watch WrestleDream because they hate AEW. I still kind of hate AEW, even though I'm more like, who cares at this point? They're going to do what they're going to do. But all of that said, AEW WrestleDream, what are my thoughts on the show? Overall, I thought it was a very good show, even though it was very long. It was way too long, in my opinion. It was a 10-match show, 14 if you include the pre-show, which I don't count the pre-show. I didn't even watch the pre-show. I never watch pre-shows, not for AEW, not for WWE. I do not have the time, nor do I have the patience, nor do I have the energy. I don't even have the patience and the time or the energy to do a quick thoughts video, which is why I'm doing this instead, because I'm lazy as fuck. So, but still, this was a long show, and I really started to feel it at a point, which I'll get into. But even though it was, and every AEW show goes on for way too long, so that's it's part of the brand. So you can't be too surprised with that. And real quick, I know it's a tribute to Antonio Inoki, but WrestleDream has got to be up there with Stomping Grounds as far as worst names for a wrestling pay-per-view ever. It just does not sound good coming off the lips. AEW WrestleDream. It sounds lame. And again, I know it's a tribute, so I'm not going to harp on it too much, but it very much sounds like, I can't think of anything else to call this. Let's scrape through all the way until we go through the bottom of the barrel to we're outside the barrel, and we'll find something outside the barrel. Maybe under the ground beneath the barrel. That's where this name came from. I'm not a big fan of the name. So we're starting things off, getting into the actual show here, with our opening contest. The AEW World Heavyweight Champion MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, defending the ROH Tag Team titles by himself in a handicap 2-on-1 match against the Righteous, Dutch, and Vincent. And also, if my audio sounds a little different than a couple seconds ago, it's because I had to move all my stuff to a different room. But yeah, okay. This was a good match, and I enjoyed it. However, I do have a few problems with it. Namely, okay, this is the second time in a row, the second AEW pay-per-view in a row, where the World Heavyweight Champion has been curtain jerking the show for the tag team titles of a dead promotion that no one cares about. I do not understand why they are using the champion this way. I understand that Adam Cole was injured, and this screwed up a lot of the plans that Tony Khan had. But I feel like if Cole was healthy, this would have been a regular tag team match to kick off the show. And again, why are you having your world champion kick off the show in a tag team title match? Not even an AEW tag team title match, an ROH tag team title match. I don't like it. I don't get it. Again, I understand a lot of the plans had to be changed because of Adam Cole's injury. But still, you've got to stop having MJF open up these shows. Like, if you want to... It's devaluing the world title. Like, the world title feels so irrelevant right now because it has been curtain-jerking 2 pay-per-views in a row now. Technically 3 with All In, because it opened the 0-hour pre-show at All In, but I'm okay with that because it set up a show-long story, and the world title was the main event of All In, so that's fine. It main evented that show, but for All Out and now WrestleDream, it's opening the show and the title is not even on the line. It's for a secondary, even though it feels like tertiary companies' tag team titles. And I just don't like that. You've got to have MJF defend the world title in the main event of the show. Or why even bother having him be World Heavyweight Champion at this point? I know it's the whole storyline with Adam Cole, and that's actually been doing very well in AEW, especially among the fans, but still, I don't like the world title curtain jerking when the title's not even on the line. It just makes it feel like, why does he even have it then? As for this match in particular, I did enjoy it. The crowd still loves MJF, and how could you not? He's really good at what he does, even though he kind of is starting to feel a little irrelevant. Not gonna lie, again, this booking is not doing him many favors. And I did like, his new gimmick is that he's like Babe Ruth. He's calling his shots, and he said, I'm going to scoop slam that fat ass, and I'm also going to grab the white dude with dreadlocks and shove his head up his ass. And he basically built up the entire match to those spots. He teased it and teased it and teased it, and he finally did it, and the crowd went wild. So he's good at what he does, and I do like the calling a shot thing. But this match did no favors for the Righteous. That's another thing. Again, I know Adam Cole is injured, but you can't have MJF beat team after team after team all by himself. You're going to make your tag teams look incompetent if they can't beat one person. Even though, if Grand Slam a couple weeks ago was any indication, no mortal human being can pin MJF, because Samoa Joe gave him a pile driver on the exposed ground, even though he has a bad neck, and somehow MJF wasn't paralyzed. So, I don't know. I like Vincent. I like his mannerisms, and I loved when he started doing the Adam Cole taunt to get the crowd to boo him. That was a good heat spot. But, and again, this was a solid 9-minute match, and it went about as long as it should have, but they need to be careful with this booking, because MJF is starting, the world title, maybe not so much MJF, but the world title is starting to feel unimportant, which is bad, and this did not do any favors for the Righteous, and you can't have MJF come in and beat a bunch of teams all by himself, because that's just going to make your tag team division look worthless. A good match, a good way to start the show, even though I do have plenty of reservations. Moving on, we have Eddie Kingston defending the ROH World title and the New Japan Strong Openweight title against the ROH Pure Champion Katsuyori Shibata. And right there, I'm going to stop right there. That's 3 championships. The previous match, one dude had 2 championships. And I counted up and down this show, there are 12 different championships on this show. Half of which weren't even defended. This show has way too many fucking championships. And that's not even counting the pre-show. I didn't watch the pre-show, but there are more championships or people that are champions on the pre-show. So more than 12 titles on one show. That is way too many. That is way, way, way too many. I'm going to quote Syndrome from The Incredibles here. Syndrome said, when everyone's super, then no one will be. I want you to think about that. If everyone on this show is a champion, then what's the point of being a champion? Since when at what point did these belts just start meaningless? Because there's too many of them all over the place. And I get it, they're from different companies, but there's a such thing as a little bit too much cross-pollination. Just, they need to relax on the top. Like, if Eddie Kingston was just the ROH champion, and there was no strong open weight title, which is there from what there's a never open weight title and a strong open weight title. Is there a difference between those titles? I'm beginning to think that New Japan also has way too many titles. But if the only title involved, the only title that either of these two guys had was the ROH World title, it would have made the ROH World title mean more, and it would make having a title in general feel more in this match. Because, Katsuyori Shibata, yeah, he didn't walk out with 3 championships, but he's still walking out with 1. So he didn't have to feel that bad by losing this match. See what I mean? And again, his title wasn't even on the line. The ROH Pure Championship, which, I'm not going to lie, I do like the concept of the Pure Championship. But again, there's too many titles in this company. Again, 12 is way too much. Especially on one show where a lot of the titles aren't even defended. Like the ROH Pure title. But the match itself, I thought, was very good. This was a very stiff, hard-hitting match, which is Eddie Kingston and Shibata. Of course, there's no way it wasn't going to be a hard-hitting slugfest. It's amazing that Shibata can still wrestle, considering that he nearly headbutted his brain out of existence a couple of years ago. And Eddie Kingston's really good at what he does. Although, another problem, they need to calm down with the, come on, hit me as hard as you can. They do that way too much. It gets to the point where I'm just like, why am I watching these two guys that are letting each other hit each other? I get that this is fake, but it's like, in kayfabe, why would you let your opponent hit you? Unless you're like Braun Strowman and you're fighting James Ellsworth, why would you let your opponent hit you? It's stupid, and they do it way too much. It didn't take away too much of the match for me, in my opinion, but it was still a little annoying. And again, this did not go very long. It was only 11 minutes, which I felt was perfect for this match. And they worked very well together. I love the strong style, and I also love that Eddie Kingston is establishing this falling powerbomb, this falling stacking powerbomb as his finishing move, because before this, Eddie Kingston didn't really have a finisher. He had that headlock twisting thing that he did to Chris Jericho back at Revolution last year. But other than that, he doesn't really have a finishing move. And the Hurricane, the spinning back fist, that's not his finishing move. That's been killed because he does it like 80 times per match, which is another issue. But overall, this was a very good match, and I enjoyed it. It went about as long as it needed to, and the right person won. And I'm glad that Eddie Kingston is starting to rack up some wins, because he won at Grand Slam, he won here. Again, I mentioned Chris Jericho. He beat Chris Jericho last year. Before that, he was super over, but he never won matches. So I'm glad to see that Eddie Kingston is starting to win matches here. So far, the counter, even though I do have some problems, we're 2 good matches in. 2 matches, and both of them were good. And that continues with our third match, Chris Statlander defending the AEW TBS Championship against Julia Hart. My only criticism, I guess, is that you have 14 matches, including the pre-show, which, again, way too many matches, only one of which was purely a women's match. Remember that sign on that episode of Dynamite where it was telling Tony to book the women's division better? He heard that and decided, you know what, I'm going to have a 14-match show, and one of those 14 matches is going to be a women's match. I joked about it on the last Quick Thoughts, but glad to see that Tony Khan is paying attention to what his audience wants. Yeah, again, the women deserve better, but hey, that aside, this was a very good match. This is the best Chris Statlander match I've ever seen, and this is by far the best Julia Hart match I've ever seen. These two worked very well together, and they had a story going into this matchup. They've had problems in the past, and I believe Chris Statlander is like one of the few people that have ever beaten Julia Hart. Like, I believe Chris Statlander beat Julia Hart in her first ever AEW match, and Julia Hart's been on like a 20-person win streak, and that started after she lost to Chris Statlander, so they have some history. And they did a great job throughout this match. It went 9 minutes, and they did very well. Chris Statlander did some very good selling throughout this match. I love that she kept referring to her as a spooky little bitch. That's just funny. And the finish of this match was awesome. The finish of this match was the best part of the match. Julia Hart had Chris in her submission hold. I think she calls it the Heartless. The Heartless or the Heartless? I think it's the Heartless because, Heartless, Julia Hart, haha, yada, 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 yada. Hearts are an organ within humans that keep us alive. And apparently Julia does not have one. So how is she alive? No, she's dead because she's edgy. she's starting to encroach upon Darby Allin's gimmick. But if she was only half dead, then we'd have a problem. Now I'm going on a tangent. But she had her in her submission hold, and Chris Statlander just powers her up, hooks her over into a tombstone, tombstones her, picks her back up. Sunday Night Fever 1, 2, 3. Mazel tov. I love that finish. Shows how strong Chris Statlander is. And again, this was a very good match. One of the better women's matches of the year. And I know a lot of people loved the Becky Lynch, Tiffany Stratton Extreme Rules match at No Mercy. The day before, was it? Yeah, it was the day before on Saturday. I thought that Extreme Rules match was good, if not a little wacky. I thought this match between Chris Statlander and Julia Hart, I thought that was better. I thought it was a way better match. But again, we are 3-0 as far as good matches are concerned on this show, so off to a good start. But up next, dear God, there has to be one of these on every show. We have a 4-way tag team match to determine the number 1 contenders for the AEW World Tag Team titles. For a winner gets a future title shot. The Young Bucks, who are the ROH 6-man tag champions, again, too many titles on the show, versus the Lucha Bros, where one of them is the international champion, again, too many championships. The Guns, who are part of Bullet Club Gold, and Orange Cassidy and Hook. Hook, of course, is the FTW champion, which I forgot. So 13 championships. I knew I was forgetting one. 13 championships on one show. This is ridiculous. There are 3 sets of champions in this one match alone, and none of those titles are on the line. Why even bother having them? I get that the FTW title is like the absolute definition of a tertiary title where no one cares. It's basically AEW's $1 million championship. But still, it's devaluing the idea of having a title, since everyone has one, apparently. This was your average garden variety, bodies flying everywhere, everyone's doing every move ever, crazy, flippy, floppy tag match. Honestly, this is where I started to get bored. This was fine, although, like, 1 minute in, the AEW International Champion, Rey Fenix, got injured. I don't know if it was a legit injury or a storyline injury. I'm not sure, but he got taken out real quick. Man, and someone on the commentary said that it looks like the AEW International title is cursed because everyone who holds it gets injured. I hope that's not the case, because we already have a championship in wrestling that already has that kind of curse. Looking at you, women's tag team titles in WWE. Although part of me can't feel too sorry for Rey Fenix, because the style he works, he goes way too fast. And he injured Jon Moxley because he goes way too fast. So, and of course, you know, all the whole thing on Grand Slam where he fucking spiked and drilled Jon Moxley into the canvas. So, it's hard to feel bad for the guy. I hope he isn't hurt, but at the same time, if he is, karma's a bitch sometimes. So, again, and I'm not saying he intentionally injured Jon Moxley, but the style that some of these people work is not viable for long-term success, or even having longevity in the first place. So, I don't even know what to say. Like, I hope Rey Fenix gets better, but maybe you should smarten up a little bit. I don't know. But again, this was bodies flying everywhere. Everyone's doing everything. Everyone's tagging in and out. Backslap tags galore. And then the Young Bucks won and no one cared. I will say, this is the most, like, silent I've ever heard the crowd go for the Young Bucks doing anything. I mean, at least at All Out, when they were in Chicago, the crowd was shitting all over everything they did because they were in punk country. Here, the crowd did not care. I mean, the crowd kind of liked everyone else, but they just did not care about the Young Bucks. I mean, and the Young Bucks have kind of just been there floating around the title scene forever, so. And I know that a lot of people hate the Young Bucks. I'm not one of them. I honestly feel about the Young Bucks the same way this crowd felt about the Young Bucks. I just don't care, which is a problem. And this match, this wasn't bad, but this wasn't my thing. It was there, and this would have been more well served on an episode of Dynamite. I would have much rather this been on Dynamite, because I don't watch Dynamite. We don't need a 80-person tag match on every pay-per-view, Tony Khan. You got to stop doing that. It's literally driving me insane. And it's not even the last match like this on this show. Up next, we had an excellent match. I love this match. Swerve Strickland versus 1/3 of the ROH Trios champions. I think I might have said the AEW Trios Tag Champions earlier with the Young Bucks. They're the ROH Trios Tag Team Champions, which again, too many belts. Swerve and Hangman Adam Page had an excellent 20-minute match. I loved this match, even though I still have kind of sore feelings about Adam Page. I still think he's a kind of an asshole. I'm not happy with him. I don't like the guy. This was a solid match, mostly because this was the Swerve Strickland showcase, and Swerve Strickland is money. I love this dude. This dude could be a top player in AEW. He should be a top player in AEW. Personally, I would love to see him back in WWE, except them treating him seriously. Whatever promotion Swerve is in, he should be at the top of. And the crowd adored him. The crowd adored him. And they shat all over Hangman Adam Page, which was very it was very therapeutic for me and probably many other people. This was a very good match. And credit to Adam Page, he realized that the crowd hated him, and he played up to it. He played heel in this match, which good on him. I still think he's kind of an idiot, a little bit of a bastard, but hey, I mean, he recognized that he was being booed, and he played up to that, and I can't hate on that. But my God, some of the moves in this match were so absolutely devastating. A little too devastating, and again, AEW doesn't really do all that much selling. Like, Swerve Strickland got a dead eye on the steel steps. That should be a concussion or a broken neck, and he should be out for weeks. But he was up just a little bit later doing more moves, so what the fuck ever. But I will say, that Swerve stomp to the apron was just absolutely devastating. That was awesome. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I marked out a little bit when he did that. That was absolutely devastating. But it wasn't the finish of the match, because of course not. If it were me, I would have had that be the finish of the match. I get why they did the finish the way they did, because they wanted to protect Hangman Adam Page, because he's one of the elite, he's one of the boys, and they want to protect their friend. But why not have him lose to that devastating stomp on the apron? I would have had that be the end of the match. And another credit to Hangman Adam Page, he did a very good job of selling his arm. He did a fantastic job of selling his arm throughout the match. Every time he did anything with the arm, he sold it, and he sold it the entire match. So, again, good on... I don't like complimenting Adam Page, but good on Adam Page for doing it in this matchup. And the right person won. Even though I wish that Swerve Strickland would have won clean. He won dirty, but he's a heel, so whatever. Even though he was kind of the babyface in this match. But, again, this was a solid match. Again, I have a few issues here and there with it, but that's neither here nor there. Overall, it was a good match. Up next, we had another match that should have been a Dynamite match. We didn't need this on the show. Ricky Starks versus Wheeler Yuta in a singles match. This was just, we need to give Ricky Starks a win on pay-per-view. That's the only reason that this was a decent match, but no one on planet Earth thought that Wheeler Yuta was winning this match. I mean, again, this was kind of a waste of time. This should have been on this was a pre-show match. This was a TV show match. This should have been on Dynamite or Collision. And I don't know why this was on pay-per-view, other than give Ricky Starks a pay-per-view win, which he desperately needed. And he did win. It's just there's not all that much to say about this match because, again, it kind of felt out of place, and no one on Earth believed that They were openly admitting on commentary that Wheeler Yuta is the whipping boy of the BCC. Or the BBC, whatever they call it. The British Broadcasting Service. Blackpool Comic Club, so it is the BCC. Speaking of which, Jon Moxley on commentary. Okay. I have mixed feelings about Jon Moxley on commentary. One, I do like that he knows what he's talking about. He sounded like he was actually delving into the technical aspects of the wrestling, and I enjoyed that. And the whole thing, the swear jar counter with him on commentary was funny. But my God, he was not letting any of the other commentators get a word in, and it was kind of annoying. So I like that we had a more in-depth analysis of what was going on in the ring. But John, shut the fuck up. Just stop talking. Let other people speak. I get that you're excited, but calm the fuck down. Speaking of which, oh my God, this next match. This was by far the best match of the night and the best AEW match of the year. We had Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. in an absolute technical classic. Dude, stop what you're doing. I don't care if you already watched this show. Stop what you're doing. Although, again, Zack Sabre Jr. is the New Japan World Television Champion. And that belt looks ugly as fuck. And again, too many titles on this show. It would have been. I just wish that Zack Sabre Jr. was just Zack Sabre Jr. He doesn't need the New Japan Tertiary Championship. Why? But whatever. This match was fantastic from start to finish. This honestly reminded me of Zack Sabre Jr. versus Drew Gulak in the Cruiserweight Classic back in 2016, which was my favorite match of the Classic. That was a pure grappling match, and it made me think of my days of being an amateur wrestler back in high school. This made me feel the same way, and it was great. It was phenomenal. It was just a straight-up grappling match. It was the most real-feeling wrestling match on the entire show. There was so much going on, so much technical grappling, and of course, Zack Sabre Jr. focusing on the previously broken arm of Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson focusing on the legs of Zack Sabre Jr. The selling was immaculate. The grappling was immaculate. They were going 1,000 miles per hour, and I damn near had to keep myself from ejaculating at multiple points. It's probably a little bit too much, but you should be used to me talking light on that on the show. This was fantastic. This is everything I want in wrestling. And I honestly don't have that much to say about it, other than go watch it. It's great. This is my favorite AEW match of the year. Maybe my favorite match of the year. I don't know. The Triple Threat Intercontinental title match at WrestleMania between Gunther, Sheamus, and Drew McIntyre is still up there as far as one of my favorite matches of the year. I honestly don't know if that one was better than this one or if this one was better than that one. It's a toss-up. This was fantastic. And even the finish was great. Bryan Danielson won with the Busaiku knee, with two Busaiku knees, pinning Zack Sabre Jr. And we had on commentary, the commentators were saying, well, Zack Sabre Jr. has an out. Daniel Bryan. I'm turning into JR. Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson pinned Zack Sabre Jr. He pinned him with a strike. He didn't out-wrestle him. He pinned him with a strike. He didn't submit him. So, even though Zack Sabre Jr. lost this match, he can still say that he's the better technician because Bryan Danielson did not beat him in the technical aspect. So I thought that was a very smart way to keep Zack strong in this match, because Zack's known for his technical and submission prowess. And if Bryan Danielson beat him via submission, then Zack would have just straight up lost. But since he got pinned in this match, which is a loss, he can still go out and say, he didn't make me tap. He's not a better technical wrestler than me. Yeah, he won the match, but as far as technical wrestling, I'm still better. And I love that they gave Zack that out. Just go watch this match. It was amazing. Then up next, we had a 6-man tag team match. And this was the part of the show where my eyes really started to glaze over. It was the Don Callis family, Konosuke Takeshita, Will Ospreay, the New Japan UK champion, and Sammy Guevara, versus Chris Jericho and the Golden Elite, Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi. This was fine. It's just, it went way too long. And my number one problem with this match was Aubrey Edwards. Jesus Christ, she's the female Rick Knox. Why even bother having rules? Like, there were multiple times in this match where everyone was in the ring for minutes and minutes and minutes, and Aubrey was not counting the illegal people at all. She was just standing there and staring at them. Just, why not have Rick Knox call this match? I mean, basically, we had the female Rick Knox. And that really took me out of this match and made it impossible for me to care. Just, rules matter, AEW. I know that you hate rules, AEW, but rules matter. This is what honestly, this is what makes WWE's presentation better than yours, because they adhere to rules more than you do. If you ever want to overtake WWE, you're not going to do it when you keep doing stuff like this. You have to care about rules. And again, this was just a bunch of moves, much like the 4-way tag match, and I just didn't care. I can barely even remember. Yeah, okay. I was about to say I can barely remember who won. Sammy Guevara pinned Chris Jericho with a bat shot that the referee didn't see. I mean, honestly, if Sammy Guevara hit Chris Jericho in the face with a baseball bat right in front of Aubrey Edwards, she probably at this point wouldn't have called for the disqualification. Because clearly, this was apparently this was a no disqualification match, because I didn't see her counting the illegal people in this match. So if she did catch Sammy just whacking Jericho with the bat, she wouldn't have called for the DQ because rules don't matter. That's what this match told me. I didn't really care for this. This was probably but it was between this and the 4-way tag match as far as my least favorite thing on the show. It wasn't bad. It was just annoying. There were the AEW isms that drive me, Sean, and Skylar nuts were at their apex in these tag team matches. The 6-man tag and the 4-way tag. Like, again, I honestly wish that this 6-man tag, the 4-way tag, and Ricky versus Wheeler were just removed from the card. And this would have been a much easier show to sit through. This would have been a 9 out of 10 show. Not even joking. So yeah, that was that. Then we move on to another tag team match, and at this point the crowd was exhausted. But this is how you do an actual tag team match. We have FTR, Cash Wheeler, and Dax Harwood defending the AEW World Tag Team titles against Aussie Open, Kyle Fletcher, and Mark Davis. This was a hell of a match. I loved this match. This was by far the best tag team anything on the show. And this should have been the only tag team anything on the show, because this is how you do tag team stuff. And the referee actually adhered to the rules throughout this match. There was like one backslap tag, but there were mostly just regular tags in this match. And these teams beat the shit out of each other. It was great. This was a stiff, hard-hitting match, and I enjoyed the entire thing. I'm not going to bother going through each and every single move that they did, because we'd be here for hours. But this was a solid tag team match. Again, FTR are very good at what they do. Even though, not going to lie, I don't like Cash Wheeler, because I think him as a person is just, I just think he's an idiot in real life. And, should probably not be allowed to own a gun. But as far as a professional wrestler, him and Dax are amazing tag team wrestlers. Aussie Open are an amazing tag team. This was a great match. And honestly, the fact that Cash Wheeler busted, I wouldn't be surprised if I heard that he has messed up ribs. Because there was a point where he started swearing, like I could hear him yelling "fuck" in the ring. Especially off of a powerbomb where I think he landed on someone's knee. Because he had a big bruise on his side after that powerbomb. There was a very visible bruise, I think, on one of his ribs. And he was favoring it a lot. And that, honestly, that interjected a lot more physicality and him having to try harder because he was in legit pain. I mean, you don't need to sell when you're legitimately in pain. Plus, I believe Mark Davis busted up his wrist because they did the superplex into the splash spot and they landed on his wrist. So he wasn't selling. He was in legit pain for the rest of the match. So that just added to it. And I don't want to see people legitimately getting injured, but it added to the match. It made it feel more intense. And the finish, the super big rig, was amazing. And I'm glad that FTR won the match, although I don't need to see FTR versus the Young Bucks 4. They already had the trilogy. At this point, I'm just like, are the Young Bucks going to win the titles again? The crowd doesn't really care about them unless they're in Chicago and the crowd hates them. We might be going to FTR versus the Young Bucks 5. So we definitely have not seen the end of it. But a very good tag team match, nonetheless. And then we ended the show with Christian Cage defending the TNT Championship against Darby Allin in a 2 out of 3 falls match. Okay. They put the international title on last on the previous pay-per-view All Out. And I like that they did that, even though that spot should go to the world title. And the AEW International title has basically replaced the TNT Championship as far as what is the most important secondary belt in the company. As of right now, although it's amazing, the second that Jon Moxley won that title and then got injured and lost it to Rey Fenix, the international title kind of feels like the AEW World title. It feels like an afterthought now. It's amazing. It's almost because the TNT title was like up there with the AEW World title. And when the international title was brought in as the All Atlantic Championship, it was like the unimportant who gives a shit about title. But then the TNT title and the international title switched places. No one gave a shit about the TNT title, and everyone cared about the international title. Now it looks like they're switching places again, because Rey Fenix has the international title and no one cares. And now everyone cares about the TNT title because it's around Christian Cage, who is doing some of the best heel work of his entire career. It's very topsy-turvy, very all over the place. But this was an excellent match. I do have a few problems with it, but this was a great main event. And they need to do more stuff like this to elevate the TNT Championship. So, I love that Darby Allin used the turtleneck against Christian Cage and pinned him in this match with it. That was hilarious. But Jesus Christ, Darby Allin. This Falcon Arrow attempt onto the steel steps, you could tell that Christian Cage was having a crisis of conscience. He was like, how do I do this move without paralyzing this man that I am suplexing? And he tried it, but he hesitated a little too much and just dropped Darby Allin on the floor. I bet that hurt. But then he picked him up again and slammed him onto the steps, which I bet that hurt also. And then he just got on the apron again and scoop slammed him onto the steps from the apron. And that was a triple whammy. The drop, the botch, I bet that sucked. The scoop slam on the steps from the floor, I bet that sucked. And the scoop slam from the apron to the floor to the steps, I bet that sucked as well. Darby, how are you not in a wheelchair? I mean, he probably will be in like 10 years, but how are you not now? That was gnarly. Like, holy crap, dude. And then, okay, that was not my favorite spot of the match. The frog splash on the stretcher. That was insane. Like, that was my favorite spot of the whole match. It was a little goofy, but it was badass silly. And it's absolutely what Christian would do in that situation. I loved it. But then we got into what I didn't really care for. They tore apart the mat and revealed the hardwood underneath, which again, we've seen that before, and honestly, we don't have, like with thumbtacks, we don't really need to do that again. Like, it just felt like, really, we're doing this again? Why? Especially since it's not a no DQ match. This is a 2 out of 3 falls match. There is a disqualification. We just saw someone get counted out. I wouldn't have done this. Also, especially since this man gave Darby a kill switch on the wood, the unprotected wood, and then Darby kicked out. So the kill switch is dead as a finisher. And then Darby Allin gave him a coffin drop on the wood, and Christian kicked out. So now the coffin drop is dead as a finisher. And everyone else throughout the show kind of looks like a wuss because they were losing to moves done on the regular mat. So, I'm not a fan of revealing the floorboards. I mean, maybe if you did it like once every 5 years, I would like it. But, again, we've seen that enough. We've seen this spot enough. I just didn't really care for it. It didn't ruin the match or anything. I was just more like, really? I just felt like it was unnecessary more than anything else. And I'm not going to lie, I do not give a shit about the Nick Wayne heel turn. Because Nick Wayne, I in my all-out quick thoughts review, I said that he looked like a child that Darby Allin was babysitting. And I just don't, he looks like a toddler. I do not care. I don't care whose father, I don't care who his father is. There is nothing on earth that will make me care about Nick Wayne. He looks like a high schooler. I don't care. Although I will say, I loved his mom's reaction to him turning heel, him turning on Darby Allin and joining Christian Cage. His mom was awesome. That sounds weird to say. But Nick Wayne's mom was better than Nick Wayne. I will say. Her going, no, Nick, what are you doing? That was great. I loved that. And I will say, I've never seen someone turn heel in front of their mom before. That's a first. And I do like that. It's just, why does it have to be with Nick Wayne? There's no way to give a shit about Nick Wayne. He's so little. He's a child. I don't care. It's like if Nicholas, after he won the Raw Tag Team titles with Braun Strowman, if he low-blowed Braun Strowman and Nicholas turned heel, I wouldn't care. But this is when the big part of WrestleDream happens. Sting comes out, tries to save Darby Allin. He gets beaten up. Luchasaurus is down there. Everyone's beating up everyone. The lights go out. And we have a little vignette, which in retrospect, the vignette was kind of pointless. It was just dragging things out for the sake of dragging things out. It didn't need to be there. Then Metalingus hits, and everyone goes insane. They blew the roof off the arena, and Adam Copeland came out, teased joining Christian and his goons. Then he whacked a child with a steel chair, and then he speared Luchasaurus onto the chair. Then he speared the child, and Christian ran. He shook hands with Darby Allin and Sting, and then they went off the air. Okay, I have some mixed thoughts on Adam Copeland / Edge joining AEW. The angle, I thought, was done very well. The angle was basically done almost perfectly. If he didn't have the little vignette, like the little video of Edge driving around in a car, that I would have removed that, then it would have been perfect. But it was still done very well. But I will say I have mixed thoughts on Edge joining AEW. On one hand, this kind of feels like Becky Lynch going to NXT. Because, I mean, there's a reason why AEW competed with NXT and not the main roster of WWE. Because it just wouldn't be a fair fight. And I know a lot of AEW fans are going to hate to hear that. But this feels like a step down for Edge. I mean, Edge has main evented multiple WrestleManias. He's a huge star in wrestling. Like, a lot of casual people know who Edge is. My dad's favorite wrestler is Edge. And now he's going to AEW? This just doesn't feel like... It feels like a big deal for AEW. It doesn't feel like a big deal for Edge. This is not... Oh, this doesn't feel like CM Punk returning to professional wrestling. That was a whole entirely different situation. This just feels like Edge just going somewhere to have fun, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I just have no faith in Tony Khan's booking. So, plus, what Edge has been doing in WWE for the past year or so has not been particularly interesting. Like, the best thing Edge has done this year was the match with Sheamus. And that's it. Everything else has been ho-hum. So it kind of took the starch off of him a little bit. But, I mean, if he looked really happy. And if he's going down there and he's making money and he's happy down there, then I'm not gonna throw too much shade at the guy. But I can't help but feel like for AEW, this is a big deal. For Edge, it feels like a downgrade. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. It feels like going from WWE to NXT, except it's a completely different company. So that's my thoughts on that. I hope Edge is happy, and I hope Tony Khan treats him well. I mean, he's been treating Christian well, so... And I am interested to see what goes on between Edge and Christian in AEW. Oh, excuse me, Adam Copeland and Christian Cage in AEW. I am interested in all of that. But again, a lot of this... this is just Edge's first night in AEW. We need to see what happens next. Because you have the debut. Because remember, CM Punk's debut was the biggest thing in wrestling. And look how that turned out a year later. Well, actually, and then look how that turned out even worse another year later. So, we will see in time if Edge coming to AEW was a good thing or a bad thing. Right now, me personally, I have mixed feelings about it. And that's all I'll say about that. But overall, WrestleDream was long, and there are way too many fucking championships in this promotion. The cross-pollination needs to relax. But this was a very good show. A very, very, very good show. I thought it was better than All Out, and I gave All Out an 8 out of 10. I'm going to give WrestleDream an 8.5 out of 10. If you took out the 6-man tag and the 4-way tag and Ricky Starks versus Wheeler Yuta, if you took those 3 matches out, I would have given this a 9 out of 10. And if you took out the Christian removing the thing from the ring to expose the wood and doing finishing moves on top of that, which should be death, but they killed their finishing. The only thing that died was the finishing moves, which that's the most AEW-ism ever. Just kill all the finishers. No moves have meaning. But again, despite all my nitpicks and complaints here and there, I thought this was a very good show. Oh, also, one more time, I can't help but mention again, WrestleDream is a stupid name for a pay-per-view. Despite all that, this was a very good show. If there's one thing that you absolutely need to go out of your way to go watch, Bryan Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr. is likely my match of the year. Go and watch that match. That was a fantastic match. And if Edge did not debut, that would have been the main event of the show. Edge debuting is the reason why the TNT title went on last, but I would have put Bryan Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr. on last if Edge was not there. But so, those are my thoughts on AEW WrestleDream. Tune in next week because plans may change, but the plan right now is for me, Sean, and Skylar to watch and review WWE Fastlane next week. I hope it's a good show. I mean, every WWE pay-per-view this year has been at the bare minimum good. So I have faith. We'll have to see if WWE can stick the landing for Fastlane. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. And I will see you guys next time. Good night, everybody.